The Martin Lindstrom Video Report. New and innovative ways of building brands.
Remember those colorful pens from the past? If you don't, I'm sure you remember this distinctive smell which takes you straight back in time to your childhood. It is just so real for some reason. The phenomenon is called the Proust effect, and what's interesting is that very few brands around the world is aware of how powerful this is as a brand building tool. This week I'm in Bogota in Colombia, and behind me you have one of the original Crayola crayon stores. It's one out of few around the world which really is focusing on the pen. But what's so surprising is that this smell is so powerful, yet there's no smell here right now. You can walk into the store and you still can't smell it. And what's interesting is that more or less pens around the whole world from Crayola crayons are not smelling of the distinct Crayola crayon smell anymore. Why? Well, we really don't know, beside the fact that probably have changed the ingredients in the pen. But the fact is that this is a very good way to kill your brand. Now, Crayola crayons is not alone in doing such a mistake. In fact, there's a lot of brands around the world which are doing exactly the same. The fact is, a lot of brands owns a sound, a sight, a touch, a taste, or a smell, but they're not even aware of it. And that leads me to an interesting prediction with advertising aides were predicting a couple of months ago, where they basically were predicting that the future of branding is going to be about the sense of smell as well. That was at least a 2008 prediction. So here's my question: what do you do to handle that? Well, a couple of years ago I wrote a book about this called Brand Sense, and I have 3 pieces of advice to you. First of all, develop a sensogram. A sensogram is in principle a pentagram which is having 5 different corners. Put in each of the different 5 senses we have available today, and then map out how good you are at appealing to them. Have a score of 0 to 5 and develop a little map inside which is showing how good you are appealing to each of the 5 senses. I'm sure you'll get a shock by now because you realize you probably only appeal to 1, perhaps 2 senses. Now do exactly the same exercise for a competing brand of yours, and then do the interesting exercise. How good do you want to be appealing to the 5 senses, or as many senses as possible, within the next 3 years? Now that leads me to point number 2, and this is really important. You actually may appeal to a sense which you're not even aware of. I'm just thinking about McDonald's and the very classic cup. You remember the cup where you get in McDonald's restaurant with Coca-Cola in it, for example? Well, just remember you have this little plastic lid and you put the straw on top of it, and you take the straw and put it through. Can you hear the sound? Well, I certainly can imagine the sound, and probably you can do too. Well, what's interesting is that is a very distinct sound which even fast food restaurants are not aware of. In fact, that particular sound makes people become thirsty, just as well as you're becoming thirsty when you hear ice cubes tinkling in a glass with Coke. Now, this is a sensory aspect which you need to be aware of as brand builders. You need to be aware of what are the sensory signals your brand own, and make sure you secure an ownership of them. Now that leads me to point number 3. Identify 1 or 2 senses you want to own. Well, my advice to you is own perhaps the sense of smell or the sense of sound. Sound is relatively easy to manage. In fact, here's a question for you. Do you have sound on your website? And if not, why not? In fact, 0.1% of the Fortune 1000 brands around the world have sound on the website. I don't understand why, because we all have speakers these days. So why don't you have a small tune, a 7-second tune, just giving a feeling of your brand, what I define as a brand signature. And by the way, why don't you have a smell as well in your retail environment, on your products, on your whatever. In fact, this is an incredible, powerful way to build a brand. And remember, the smell is the only aspect which is bypassing the rational side of our brain and basically appeal straight to our emotions. It's powerful stuff. I'll jump on another plane now, but join me next week, another place in the world where I'm going to explore new and innovative ways of building brands. See you then.
The Martin Lindstrom Video Report. New and innovative ways of building brands.